In the bustling streets of a small town called Maplewood, 76-year-old Ruth Johnson slowly made her way home. The afternoon sun cast a warm glow on the narrow, uneven paths as her wheelchair squeaked in rhythm with her steady movements. Ruth, a resilient woman with decades of experience behind her, had grown used to the challenges she faced as an elderly black woman in a society that wasn't always kind. Her life had been a tapestry of trials, but she had faced them all with dignity and resolve. In her lap rested a bag of groceries. Her only child, Alex Johnson, was a figure of national importance, having recently become the governor of the state, a position that brought pride but also a sense of loss for Ruth. His demanding role meant he could seldom visit her, and she longed for the days when they would sit together on weekends, sharing simple stories and laughter. But today, Ruth was alone, journeying home with her few belongings and memories as her silent companions. As she turned a corner near an old coffee shop, Ruth noticed two uniformed police officers by their car. One of them, Officer Todd Benson, was young and brash, while his partner, Officer Matt Connor, was a gruff man in his 40s, eyes always narrowed as if searching for trouble. Benson spotted her first, nudging Connor and exchanging words that carried a sense of purpose. Ruth felt a slight chill. She had been cautious her entire life, always avoiding confrontations, but something about the officer's attention felt unsettling. "Excuse me, ma'am," Officer Benson called out with a smirk. "Mind stopping for a minute?" Ruth halted, offering a polite but wary smile. "Good afternoon, officers. Is there something I can help you with?" Benson looked her up and down with an expression that made Ruth's hands tighten on her chair. "Just wondering what you're doing out here. This isn't a typical place for folks like you." Her heart pounded, but Ruth kept her voice steady. "I'm just heading home. I live nearby." Connor glanced at her wheelchair, raising an eyebrow. "You sure you're really disabled? We've seen all kinds around here, pretending to be things they're not." Ruth felt a knot in her stomach, surprised by the directness of the question. "I've been using this chair for almost 10 years now. A car accident left me unable to walk." Benson scoffed, crossing his arms. "Convenient, isn't it? Just sitting around, getting all kinds of support, trying to keep her calm." Ruth replied, "I'm just trying to get home, sir." Connor took a step forward, his shadow looming over her. "Stand up and prove it, then. Otherwise, we have to assume you're faking." A chill ran through her. She'd heard of encounters like this, but never thought it would happen to her. "I can't stand," she said quietly, her voice laced with a dignity she refused to let go. Benson snickered. "Sure you can't. Just like the rest of them. Easy to pretend when you don't have to pay for it." Nearby, a few people had stopped, watching the interaction from a distance. Ruth noticed a young man pulling out his phone, beginning to film the scene discreetly. But Benson and Connor were too wrapped up in their amusement to notice. Suddenly, Benson reached for the handles of her wheelchair and pushed it backward, causing Ruth's groceries to spill onto the pavement. A carton of eggs cracked open on the sidewalk, spreading yellow yolks over the concrete. Ruth gasped, her voice trembling. Why are you doing this?" Ignoring her question, Benson laughed. "Let's see if you can keep up." He pushed her wheelchair forward at a jarring speed, letting go suddenly as Ruth clutched the armrests, barely managing to regain her balance. Her heart raced, her hands shaking, yet she held her head high, determined not to let them see her fear. Connor smirked. "Who do you think you are, really? Just because your son's someone big doesn't mean anything here." Ruth froze, her mind reeling. How did they know about Alex? She hadn't told anyone in this neighborhood about her son's position. The knowledge in their eyes made her heart sink even further. The young man filming had attracted a small crowd, and murmurs spread among the bystanders. Ruth could hear snippets of whispered outrage, but no one dared step forward. The officers seemed oblivious to the attention they were drawing. Benson leaned close, his voice a low taunt. "You know, people like you just think the world owes you, don't you?" Ruth's throat tightened, but she maintained her composure. "I've never asked for more than my share, officer. Now, please, let me go home." Connor chuckled, shaking his head. "Typical. Think you could talk your way out of anything?" Without warning, Benson pulled out his handcuffs, fastening them around her frail wrists. "Guess you'll have to take this up with the station," he sneered, tugging her out of the wheelchair as her body crumpled to the ground. As they loaded her into the back of the police car, Ruth caught the eye of the young man filming, who gave her a small nod of solidarity. She sat in the car, her wrists sore from the cuffs, her spirit feeling bruised. At the state government offices, Alex Johnson was reviewing documents when his assistant burst into the room, her face ashen. "Governor, you need to see this." Handing him a tablet, she pressed play on the video. Alex watched in disbelief, his mother's familiar figure at the mercy of the two officers, her wheelchair upended, groceries strewn on the sidewalk. His jaw tightened, anger rising within him. How could this happen? Where is she? "She's been taken to the station, sir," the assistant replied. "A team has already been sent, but we need your approval for further action." Alex didn't hesitate. "I want those officers suspended immediately and my mother released. Get the chief of police on the line." Minutes later, he was on a call with Chief Garland, his voice barely containing his anger. "My mother was just assaulted by two of your officers. I want an investigation started now." Chief Garland responded quickly. "We're taking this seriously, Governor. She'll be released immediately, and disciplinary actions will be taken against the officers involved." Alex's voice was firm. "It's not just about my mother. We need to ensure this doesn't happen to anyone else. Make sure this is handled with transparency and justice." As the day unfolded, the story spread rapidly. The video taken by the bystander went viral, sparking nationwide outrage. People marched through city streets, holding signs reading, "Justice for Ruth" and "Stop Police Abuse." Ruth's story had become the catalyst for a movement that stretched across the country, calling for accountability and reform. Later that evening, Alex addressed the press, his voice strong yet filled with emotion. "What happened to my mother is a stark reminder of the prejudice and abuse that too many of our citizens face daily. This cannot go unanswered. We will fight for change." Ruth, safely home but deeply shaken, watched her son on the television with a bittersweet smile. The path ahead was uncertain, but she knew that their efforts would pave the way for future generations to live with dignity and respect. The movement continued to grow, and within a year, Alex succeeded in passing a bill that mandated police accountability and prohibited unnecessary force against vulnerable individuals. The Ruth Act became a symbol of hope, named in honor of the woman whose dignity had sparked change. Sitting with Alex on her porch a year later, Ruth placed her hand on his. "We're making a difference, aren't we?" Alex nodded. "This is only the beginning, Mom. There's still work to be done, but we're moving forward." They watched the sunset together, hopeful for a world where stories like theirs would no longer be needed, their journey unfolding as part of a greater story yet to be written. As Ruth and Alex sat quietly on her porch, the gentle hum of crickets filling the air, both mother and son felt the gravity of how much had changed and how much had yet to be done. Though they had come so far from that day of injustice, Ruth knew that her journey, and now Alex's, was part of something bigger, a tapestry woven from the shared struggles of generations. Her story, once confined to a small corner of Maplewood, had now ignited a movement for justice and respect. Together, they had transformed pain into purpose, laying the foundation for a legacy that would inspire countless others. Looking out over the street where her neighbors had gathered to show their support, Ruth saw faces both familiar and new. People from all walks of life, families with children, students, neighbors, activists, had come together not just to honor her, but to affirm their commitment to building a kinder, fairer world. Their shared presence was a reminder of the power of community and unity, of how the strength of one woman's resilience could resonate beyond any one town or state. Ruth gently squeezed Alex's hand, her heart swelling with gratitude. "You know, Alex," she said, her voice soft but steady, "we did this together, not just because of a title or a position, but because we chose not to let fear and anger rule us." Alex nodded, his face solemn. "I've learned more from you, Mom, than I could from any office or position. You showed me how to turn heartbreak into strength, how to use power responsibly, and, most importantly, how to stand up for those who can't always stand up for themselves." A neighbor approached, handing Ruth a small card signed by people from all over the town, and even some from afar. thanking her for inspiring them to believe in justice again. Ruth read through the messages, each word a testament to her impact, her quiet courage magnified through the voices of people whose lives she had touched without ever meeting them. Ruth and Alex knew, however, that the fight didn't end here. The Ruth Act had become a symbol, yes, but the change it represented needed vigilant nurturing. Reform was only the first step. The true test would be in how people treated each other, how communities and institutions upheld values of compassion, equity, and respect day after day. Ruth had come to understand that justice was not a final destination, but a journey, one that demanded constant awareness, empathy, and courage. Turning to Alex, Ruth spoke with a quiet wisdom. Laws may change actions, but it's love and understanding that will change hearts. It's our responsibility, yours and mine, to keep pushing forward, to remind people that every person deserves respect, not because of who they know or what they've achieved, but simply because they're human. This insight resonated deeply with Alex. He had always viewed justice as something to be won or achieved, a goal with clear metrics. But now he understood his mother's perspective. Justice was a living, breathing value, one that required people to commit each day to kindness and equity. His work wasn't just about enforcing new policies, but fostering a culture where no one had to fear for their dignity or safety. As the last rays of the sunset faded, Ruth looked around at the gathering of friends, neighbors, and strangers who had come to support her and stand by her side. She felt pride, not in the recognition she had received, but in the knowledge that she had played a part in something meaningful, something that would ripple outward and touch lives she would never even know. Her story, once marked by struggle and quiet endurance, had blossomed into one of empowerment and hope. The moral of Ruth's journey was clear. No matter the challenges life throws your way, hold on to your dignity and compassion. When faced with injustice, do not let anger turn you bitter. Instead, let it fuel your determination to create change. Ruth's courage showed that even in moments of great vulnerability, strength can emerge. Her resolve reminded the world that everyone, regardless of their background or limitations, deserves to be treated with respect. Her actions taught her son, and everyone touched by her story, that true power lies not in titles or authority, but in kindness, resilience, and a willingness to fight for what is right. As Ruth and Alex sat together, they knew they had started something that couldn't easily be undone. Their family, their community, and even their country were now bound by a shared hope. A hope that one day, justice would not just be a distant ideal, but an everyday reality for everyone. Together, they watched the evenings settle over the town, silently pledging to carry the torch of justice, so others might find their way forward too.